Hey guys, welcome to Nerdarchy, for nerds by nerds. I'm Ted, hanging out with this guy,
Dave.
And today we're responding to a comment.
Well, it's a combination of comments and a sage advice that was put up recently.
So Mike Mearls had said that he wanted to remove initiative from.
I hate initiative. He basically, I hate initiative. Wanted to remove it from the game, and the line goes something along the lines of, "The dragon swoops in. Let's do a bunch of bookkeeping."
Right.
But before we do that bookkeeping, let's do our Nerdarchy bookkeeping with the Nerdarchy, the newsletter, down in the comments below, or down in the description below, where you can sign up for the newsletter. We can get weekly tips as well as learn how to game with Nerdarchy.
So, I didn't read the article. I didn't see.
Well, so Sage Advice, they put out, since they're not doing the forums and stuff anymore, a lot of times what they do is they answer through tweets.
Mm-hmm.
And it was in Twitter, and then also you guys can go over and like the Facebook fan page for Sage Advice, and there's all kinds of cool stuff over there. Oftentimes I'll grab stuff from there to share over at Nerdarchy on Facebook as well.
Right.
Yeah. So from that, there was several different comments. One was Dwayne Wild says what he does is he asks for 3 initiatives at the beginning of the night from each player.
Okay.
And he just uses them in order. So when something occurs, he doesn't break narrative, except for when, except for it to go in the order of the initiatives.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of the whole point, too, why they're saying, they don't like initiative because, everyone is saying that they don't like the initiative is because it breaks narrative. Another thing I saw recently, too, someone does is, I don't even remember where I saw it, who does this, but they actually just do a passive initiative.
Mm-hmm.
Like all the other scores, so they just use 10 plus your initiative modifiers.
Okay. And
you just always have that,
Well, the idea behind the initiative is the fact that it is something that's changeable.
It's random.
And yeah, it's random. So therefore it's like, all right, well, something happened this time to cause you to go faster or slower, and most of the time it's overlooked, but it's there. It's something that
it's a variable.
Yeah.
There was there was one other variation I saw, or 2 other variations I saw throughout the discussions. One was the every round initiative, which is really going to slow things down, and I believe that's how D&D was.
Yeah.
Did we roll initiative every round?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's been so long since I played, but and then the other one was group initiative.
Right.
So you one side goes, the other side goes, and you just someone even said they even have all these different factors they use to figure out the group initiative.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, when it becomes like a calculus formula, I'm like, no, thank you. Of all the solutions that I saw, you guys are gonna give me 3 initiatives, and you're just gonna write them down and hold on to them. That one's not bad.
It's not bad. Now if the whole idea is, well, I want to, I want to get rid of this thing that breaks narrative.
Yeah.
You're playing a game here. If you're doing totally immersive stuff, then get rid of all the gamey stuff. Sit down and tell stories.
Yeah.
You
need the randomness.
Part of what we do is determined by the dice, and you have to acknowledge that fact. We're playing a game where the story is developing by the actions of the players and what the DM, tells them and how everyone responds to everything.
Well, there is one thing, right? The DM knows what he wants. The players know what they want, but there is one thing more important than that.
What's that?
The dice know.
I knew you would get to that at some point in time. I've been, on the cheering end and the groaning end of the that particular phrase of the dice know.
Yeah.
And if you want just narrative stuff, if you want to just sit back and tell stories and leave the dice aside, there's different ways that you can do it, and you can still do a lot of things. And I in the last video we talked about, I had shared that in the session before last that I ran, I did an entire encounter that was diceless. I gave agency to the players and just said, "Tell me what happens." So it's completely doable, where you can go around the table and describe parts of combat, rounds of combat, an entire combat from a particular player's perspective, and you can go through all of this and not need the dice.
Well, at a certain point, though, like when you fundamentally change things in the game, you've just created a different game. You've changed the game. The one thing I will say, too, is that I actually had this discussion on the fan page with other people too. It's like, D&D has certain things that it cannot change. Like these have been part of the game since the beginning, and the fans, like if you come out with updates or new additions, they expect certain things to be in that game, and if it's not,
initiative is one of them.
It's probably going to be a rift or cause a problem. And we saw in 4th edition where they made the most sweeping changes. It totally split and divided the community.
It did.
So D&D really does have a lot of baggage that it has to deal with and manipulate, and can be unwieldy at times. And they're kind of stuck because like this is a legacy game.
Absolutely.
Yeah, in my opinion. So
well, I mean, it's a legacy game, and it's at this point in time, it's generational.
Yeah.
How many different generations do we have? Are we on our 3rd or 4th at this point in time? It's been around the block.
So I just thought it was an interesting discussion that's happening around the initiative mechanic, and and the fact that like one of the examples that was used is like the party is at a balcony. They come down like a hallway. They're at a balcony. The monk's at the back. There's other characters in between him and the barbarian. The barbarian's at the front. And before anything else can happen, like, Barbarian's like, I am just leaping over the rail, grabbing my axe, I'm going for it. And the DM's at that point goes roll initiative. They all roll initiative. The monk in the back goes first. He's like, I can't actually physically get through everyone here.
Right.
Although I disagree with you completely. You're a monk, you can totally parkour that shit. And, get up front. But, it is used as the example, right? So, like, that in that instance, it doesn't make sense. But what might make sense is you go, okay, Barbarian has surprise round because he acted without telling anybody what he's doing and just did it, and then you resolve initiative.
Right.
That might have just been like, that might be an instance of actually the misuse of the mechanic, in my opinion, especially if like the other side didn't actually know they were up there and the Barbarian was going to be doing something. So there's like, that you actually, like, there's moments that you can pull outside of initiative.
Absolutely. Now, the other thing to look at in regards to this issue is the powerful phrase "roll initiative."
That's another thing started. That's another thing that started this whole thing and was like the centerpiece of the tweet of roll initiative being like one of the biggest like I don't want to say tropes, but recognizable phrases from the game.
Because like if you look through the different fantasy shirts that different companies are making, it's like, oh, this thing happens, roll initiative. It's so commonplace to our genre, our crew, whatever you want to call it, and it strikes memories, and it tells the players.
The DM's just throwing down the gauntlet. He said,
yes,
it's on.
So the players know that they're going to get to respond to that. So it's like, oh, if I just sit here and be like, okay, the dragon is, swoops overhead, a gout of flame, flies from its nostrils, all right, it's your action. What are you doing?
Dude, it's totally like when you're in the cage for MMA fighting, and the referee is like, are you ready? Are you ready? Fight! And that, that's our roll initiative. It's like, it's on. You're gonna do it.
But if you were to take that out, and you would be like, oh well, we're not gonna roll initiative. We're just gonna go with a set thing. And okay, the dragon's flying overhead. It a gout of flame leaps from its nostrils. All right, first player to my right. Are you doing anything? Well, if he doesn't realize that this has become a combat encounter because he's just first on initiative, You know, he'd be like, all right, well, I'm gonna hide, or I'm gonna not.
Well, that's a really good point. Like that phrase, role initiative, is a cue to the players that they now have agency to do whatever they want. Because let's face it, like things aren't happening in real time just because, as a DM narrating, you can't narrate in real time.
Right.
You know what I mean? There's more going on and more to be taken in than people can actually physically, consciously take in being there, let alone describing it. So that you kind of like almost need to break into narration, going, okay, you guys have all the facts, now it's your turn. Mm-hmm.
And that role initiative carries that with it, and over decades of this game, over multiple editions, it's stayed put. It's carried through, and if you want to house rule at your game that you don't want to use it.
Or use some variation.
Or use a variation. That's fine. The rolling multiple things and setting it aside. Sure, whatever floats your boat. As long as I'm the DM, it's going to be initiative at the moment, because not only when you're told roll initiative is it setting a mindset, but you're setting up the field, and as everyone is giving their numbers, you're all figuring out where your queue is, and in that time that the information is going to the DM, you're thinking about what you're going to do. So as a good player you should be anyway, so that when it gets to your turn, you're not sitting there twiddling your thumbs. What are my options? So like, it's not like time is being wasted. The time is being used. Yeah.
Not that long ago, we did another video about initiative because Nate wanted to do it, and I think this was the point that he was trying to make, but maybe he didn't illustrate it well enough for us to truly understand what he was getting at. But having recently seen like a flurry of activity with other people, and even being in hindsight looking at revisiting and thinking about that conversation we had with him. Yeah, it's unfortunate he wasn't here for this video because this, I believe this is the stuff that he was actually trying to illustrate to us.
Okay.
About breaking narration and not being realistic in certain ways. But that's just the way it is sometimes. It's at the end of the day, it is a game as well. So
right.
Those
that's
elements
true.
are in there.
So, what do you guys think? Are you, for or against the standard initiative system? Let us know in the comments down below. While you're at it, like, share, even subscribe.
You can go hang out with us over on Facebook.
So until next time, stay nerdy.